Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go over my thoughts after having completed the brand new game, 12 Minutes. It is a story thriller game that has kind of a fixed perspective. It took about 6 hours or 7 hours to beat, and that's about how long you can expect to play it as well. As you can see in the background, I'll be putting footage of the opening minutes of the game. Since it is a story game and it can be spoiled, I'm only going to show the very beginning. So if you want to actually play through the whole thing and experience it yourself, you'll have to pick it up and play it. And I do recommend it. It has a lot of really interesting ways to tell story and kind of get you into the story of the game itself. And I think that it's something that you'll definitely remember. And it has some big names in it too, with Willem Dafoe, James McAvoy, and Daisy Ridley being the voices in the game. And so you're basically this guy who comes home. It's got this top-down perspective, and it's just very click-to-move, interact strategy-wise. And what happens is the general premise of the story is you walk into your home, and you then get stuck in a time loop of exactly 12 minutes, thus the title of the game. And your job is to figure out why you're stuck in this time loop and find a way to break out of it. And so as you go through the different layers of the story and the development of the characters and the things that you learn, you try to start figuring out what's happening, why it's happening, and what to do about it. And I think from that standpoint, it is, if I could best describe the game, it's something that is very simple. You have this singular area. You're just in this one home that has a main living space, a closet, and two rooms, a bedroom and a bathroom. And you're running through the same loop over and over. So you're experiencing the same things in the same order. But every time you go through, as with most time travel, media like TV or games, you learn something and then you get to go back and try again. And this time, knowing more, you get to apply that knowledge to change the result or to alter what happens. So from that standpoint, it's exactly that. You get to run around and click on things, and you have dialogue options with the different characters. And honestly, the way the game is set up, you can do most of anything. I mean, there's things that you can't do, but you'd be surprised what you're able to do. And actually, from a development standpoint, I'm impressed that they were able to include so many different variations. Based on where your characters are standing, the same actions can still happen. They'll just do a different animation, or they'll, the same result will happen. It'll just trigger a different way. And usually when you have that kind of spiraling spider web style development, it can become kind of overwhelming, but I think they did a great job of putting everything together. The art style is simple. As you can see, it's not really overdone. It's not overly stylized either. I think the whole point of this game is to focus on the storytelling itself and the experience rather than trying to be, the next gen graphic game. I think one criticism I would have over the presentation mostly is it seemed like they used mocap, motion capture, for most things. The problem is if you use a simple 3D model, or one that isn't as accurately proportioned, when you use mocap, sometimes you get some weird glitches. You get some penetration when you shouldn't, and you get some squash and stretch and some distortions. And I think the whole point is, it seems like they just said, we'll make it look however it needs to look. It's not about the visuals. We're going to make the story be the focus. So it definitely took a little bit at the beginning to get used to kind of some of the chunky motion of the characters in the presentation. And there's definitely some bones breaking, and some of the animations are there, but obviously for the amount of animations they had, and I'm sure the core development team itself was very small. So I think they just kind of did what they could with what they had, and then they move forward. So it starts out very interesting and very simple. You're just this guy who comes home to his wife. You greet your wife. You can have dialogue options with her. If you say the wrong thing, you'll piss her off. If you say the right thing, she'll, be happy with you and want to do things. And as you exhaust dialogue options, they gray out. And then you can, the next time around, you can try a different option when the time resets. And it doesn't really spoon feed you very much, which isn't very common nowadays. It's rare for story games to not completely tell you which direction to go into. And so you are encouraged to explore your environment. There's things that you can interact with, like vents. You can break them open and move objects around and come up with ideas yourself that you think might influence the course of events that happens. And then there's actually a good bit of freedom with the objects that you have, like a cell phone, being able to dial numbers and then figuring out numbers from previous experiences and all that. It is quite gruesome. There is the characters, some of the characters end up dying for various reasons, and obviously you get to reset that. But it's got this kind of thriller horror movie vibe with a lot of interaction points. The major conflict you'd run into is this cop shows up, ties both of you up, and claims that you have done something very wrong and wants to bring you in for it. And then if you kind of get frisky with him, he will hit you or kill you. And then same with your wife. And so there's definitely this kind of major conflict coming in at you, like, hey, we want to prevent this and make this, go better in our way. And actually there, it becomes at points very straightforward what you're supposed to do, and then gets very confusing of like, you do something that seems right, and then the day resets anyway, and you have no idea why. And you're left wondering, like, why did the day reset? I thought I fixed it. I thought I solved it. So I think they left enough pitfalls in the story that kind of keep you up on this roller coaster of thinking you have it, and then something crazy happens and changes your whole world, and then you go back and do it again. So I think the story is it's a good ride. It's not a very expensive game, so I wouldn't. It's not something you have to shell out $60 for. But it's definitely, I think it's worth it if you like thrillers or horrors or interesting games. I think this is a good example of something that is made well without having the the biggest budget for everything ever. It's more about the experience, the interactions, and the story. And I think from that standpoint, they nailed it. So I'd highly recommend this game. The other critique I'd have of the game is more of a gameplay design or game flow issue. Because you are working through repetitive timelines, there are things that you can skip because you've already experienced it before. But you can only skip it by speeding up each line one at a time. And I don't know exactly how they would fix this, but there were definitely in the second half of my playthrough, there were times where I just felt like I was burning minutes just going through the same motion again to get back to where I was, so that I could choose a different path than I had. So I kind of wish that there were more shortcuts to get back to where you were, but I understand why they didn't do that, because you can make different choices at any point along the way. So maybe they wanted to keep it freeform so that you could start over from the very beginning. It's only 12 minutes that you're resetting, so you can kind of go through those same 12 minutes over and over again. But if you go through 10 minutes and at minute 10 and a half is the decision you're trying to change, and you have to go through that period again. I wish there were more speed ups to have to go through that. There are ways that you can fast forward time and kind of skip along to special events. And there's dialogue options that become available as you progress through the game that allow you to skip ahead. But I wish that they had a little bit more of it, because there's definitely periods where I felt like I was just kind of going through the motions because I wanted to see what all the outcomes were, but it took a long time to be able to get through everything. But the story had me on the edge of my seat. I was kind of fully engaged the whole time. They didn't baby step you too much. There were definitely periods where I got very frustrated. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't know what I could fix, and it seemed like everything was helpless, which of course is part of the whole experience, right? Is wondering, okay, how do I fix this? It seems like nothing will fix this. And there's definitely, it doesn't have the same typical, I guess, like mainstream gameplay of like, here's the breadcrumb you need to go exactly where you go. And there's times where you kind of have to get creative and come up with a solution, and you think there's no way this actually works, and then it does. And you're like, oh, they actually added support for this. That's pretty cool. So I think if you like story games, if you're a fan of any of the actors that are in this, or the actress that's in this, or you just like the developer and the experience itself, I'd say it's a sure pickup for you. Definitely buy it. It's got a lot of replayability as well if you want to try different paths or try different items. And there's not really many games that are like it or exactly like it. So you'll get a very unique kind of memory out of this experience. So overall, very good. Only a few negatives that I would knock against it. I don't think, honestly, either of the negatives that I've listed are enough to detract from the experience or make it a negative experience at all. It's just something to note if we're going to do a full review on it. So that's 12 minutes. Definitely pick it up if it's your jam. If not, that's cool too. But yeah, man, it was a good game, and I'll remember it for a very long time. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.